Raider Zone Weekly. Vince Calautti, Ryan Smith, Steve Kandray, and Billy Hassinger. Good evening. This is Raider Zone Weekly. I'm Billy Hassinger, Vince Calautti, Ryan Smith, and Steve Kandray with me as always. Happy March 1st, everybody, as it is the first day of the third month of the year. Time going by very quickly. And since Steve wants to talk about it for a quick second, I am one very sore host here tonight.
Yes, I was going to say, not only is it Happy March 1st, but it's Happy Billy Recovery Day. Billy was in a belly flop contest yesterday, and he did well. He didn't quite win, but he did good. There's some video. We should post that on the WRMU site. Some of the video of it. We might do that. Everyone listening.
If anyone is friends with Billy Hassinger, go find him. I believe his account is public for the fact that you could probably see what's posted on his wall. There's a video of him on his first flop attempt.
The video is not actually on my wall. It's just on Tori's.
Oh, it's just on Tori's?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, Billy had some. Billy, you know what? I salute you for doing that because you put your body on the line for this radio station.
I salute diving boards everywhere.
But nonetheless, our first actual topic of the night, the slam dunk contest this past weekend during All-Star Weekend. Quite frankly, it was one of the worst ones I've seen in quite a while. There really were no big-time dunks. The best one was it George that pulled it off?
Which one?
Or Evans that did the double dunk.
That would be Jeremy Evans.
You know,
Evans.
That's why he won.
That's how boring this dunk contest was. We can't even remember who the winner was.
I mean, I know you remember the participants: Derek Williams, Chase Budinger, Vince's best friend.
Yeah, Chase Budinger.
George and Evans. Evans won it where he was able to dunk two balls through it off of a lob from Gordon Hayward, but George had a pretty cool dunk where he just actually had the entire arena blacked out. But nonetheless, very boring dunk contest overall.
Yeah, and it's kind of, well, sorry, Vince, but it's kind of ironic because all we've been talking about, or all I've seen on ESPN highlights lately, has been these awesome dunks in the pros and even in college. I mean, we had Blake Griffin with that monumental dunk. I saw on ESPN's Top 10 for Tuesday. I just remember seeing that it was a phenomenal day for dunks. I mean, there were dunks all over the place. I mean, we've got LeBron making crazy dunks, Dwayne Wade, but the problem is that the big stars do not participate in the event. So it's like, any all-star event is going to be boring when it's not involved with the All-Stars. So it's so disappointing because we see these great dunks in the game, but then when we actually have these great dunkers and give them a venue to actually show off their skills at dunking, they don't participate.
You hit the nail right on the head. There has not been a star performer. That Dwight Howard did it the first few years, and him and Steve Francis were the two big names if you really think about these past few years.
Steve Francis?
Nate Robinson?
Nate Robinson. Well, Steve Francis was in there at one point, too. They looked similar to me. But Nate Robinson, able to jump over Howard on that. We saw Blake Griffin last year, huge dunk over a car. But really, no big names really want to go out and do this. Now going back to the days with Jordan and everything, where Jordan went in just because he was competitive. This is where David Stern acts as I am dictator of NBA law and says, you are in the dunk contest, you are in the dunk contest, you are in the dunk contest, you're doing it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just not as entertaining. Like you said, with Dwight Howard and Nate Robinson, there was always some banter. They would always kind of poke fun at each other and make sure that it was interesting. These guys weren't even entertaining. Like, the two-ball dunk was very good. It was kind of cool. It was something different. But other than that, there was nothing innovative. These guys play like 10 minutes a game all combined in the NBA per game. So, I mean, they're not big names, and it's a struggle to get viewers.
Yeah, it was just boring this year. The All-Star game really wasn't that great either till the end. But moving on, NASCAR, back in season. They Daytona 500 this past weekend, and 36 hours after it was supposed to start, it finally finished on Tuesday morning about 1 a.m. after rain delayed Sunday, rain delayed on Monday. They just pushed it back because of money issue. More money.
It was the first night. Oh, I'm sorry.
But then, during a caution with 40 laps to go, Juan Pablo Montoya goes out of control, crashes into a jet dryer, causes a 2-hour and 5-minute red flag where no one can work on their cars or anything. Just a crazy day for Daytona.
And Kenseth was the one that pulled out the victory. Second time he's won it in 2 years. Won it in 2009, coming back. Nice another win with his. When you saw Dale Earnhardt trying to make that charge, getting around the corner, but his Kenseth's teammate holding him off there, making sure they couldn't swing around him. And a great job there. Just a really interesting contest as you saw these guys going at it with all the stuff that was going on. Being at night, being with different storylines going around, Danica Patrick and everything going on with that, all the crashes. It was actually going to be a very memorable Daytona 500, particularly with the rain delay and the night race.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was the first night Daytona 500 and it was the first Monday Daytona 500, so that was interesting. But yeah, I mean the delays were crazy. That jet dryer incident was ridiculous. Apparently now for the next races they're gonna have, if you drive a jet dryer, you have to wear a fire suit and a helmet. But I remember watching that, and that was it was like a fireball. It was like one of those things you see on real TV or one of those shows where it just shows like real live accident, crazy thing happens, man slides into jet dryer, explosion. Like it was exciting. I mean, luckily nobody really got hurt.
I liked your announcer voice for that.
Thank
too.
you. Raiders Own Weekly, crazy stuff happens. Ryan Smith, your comments.
Hi. No.
So that's all the value I give to the show anymore.
But I think the only winner here, it wasn't even Matt Kenseth. I think it was Insomniacs everywhere. I'm not a huge NASCAR fan, but I was going to give this one a shot. I was like, okay, Sunday, possibly I'll watch a little bit of it.
Good for you, Ryan.
Didn't happen. You know what? I'm trying. I'm branching out. And
unlike Steve with baseball.
And then Monday comes around. It's like, you know what? Don't have a lot of homework. I'm not doing much of anything. Let's watch a little bit of it. Then it got to be about midnight, and the race wasn't over. And I was like, you know what? I'm done with this. Not going to happen right now. Saw the highlight the next morning of who won and got some more sleep. So I think the winner here was Insomniacs everywhere, who actually stayed up to watch the end of that race.
I just stayed up to watch it because I never go to bed till about 1:30 in the morning anyway. But
proud of you, champ.
Nonetheless, I'm over at my buddy's house. We're watching Monday Night Raw, and I see something about Juan Montoya's crash, and it's just like, you gotta be kidding me! How in the crap do you crash under caution?
5 Undivided.
It is time for our first 5 Undivided topic of the night, and if you haven't heard, free agency for the NFL is getting ready to kick off here soon, and we're going to be talking about potential franchise tags and key free agents. As Mario Manningham has said that there's about a 75% chance he's leaving the Giants. Deshaun Jackson just got franchised today. Mike Wallace of the Steelers is not going to be franchised. Instead, they're going to tender him, in which case he signs somewhere else. They get a first-round pick in compensation for him. Browns have said they are not going to franchise tag Peyton Hillis.
Who wanted to join the CIA at some point last year, apparently.
Deshaun Golden for the 49ers, big-time safety, he's getting franchise tag, and Calais Campbell of the Arizona Cardinals is getting franchised as well. What's going on in the NFL with free agency?
Question: is Drew Brees getting franchise tag?
No.
They have not come out and
Not
said that
yet.
he's getting franchised yet.
Okay.
They're going to. It looks like they're far apart, so they're going to be forced to franchise tag him.
He's not leaving the Saints inevitably. No. He's either going to be franchised or given a boatload of money.
Yeah, that's what I was. They said they were about $5 million off of the thing, but I was surprised they didn't just franchise tag him.
The interesting one I'm interested to see is with Mike Wallace, because they can't franchise him because it'll cost too much. It'll put him way back over the cap, and with all the restructuring they're doing, they're trying to keep that core together. They can't. The core's getting too old. There's too much money tied up. They're going to have to get rid of people. They're starting to get rid of people now. We saw Heinz Ward got cut yesterday. So if you're looking at this, with Wallace having to come in, they're going to get a first-round tender on him. Someone can come in and just swipe him because the Steelers really can't make any sort of good offer sheet to go against him. If you're looking at a late-round pick like the 49ers as someone who can just say, here, we'll give you our first-round pick, or someone who's got 2 first-round picks can offer a lot of front-loaded money contract right there and say, here, you'll take our first-round pick, we still have one sitting later. That's going to be interesting thing to watch. The other one's going to be interesting to watch is the Houston situation. You've got Mario Williams and you've got Arian Foster. Foster being an unrestricted free agent looks like they'll franchise him, but they're going to try.
Foster's not unrestricted. He's restricted.
Restricted. That's what I meant. He's restricted free agent. Looks like they're going to. Looks like they might franchise him anyways. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Williams, because Williams may test the market, and a lot of people are predicting he's going to be gone. And we'll see what happens.
Being a Steelers fan, I was amused by the fact that Dennis Dixon, Charlie Batch, and Byron Leftwich are all free agents. So I hope we sign some more backup quarterbacks or re-sign some of them, because I was amused.
They said they're going to re-sign Batch and
Well,
Leftwich.
I'm sure. I mean, Batch has been there for like 30 years.
Yeah, Dixon's going to go in free agency. Colbert said he needs to go somewhere where he can actually get a chance to start.
Yeah, I just thought that was interesting that all of them were. I was like, man, it'd be weird if it worked out that we ran out, because we really need backups in Pittsburgh, because if you haven't noticed, Ben is not too good at staying healthy. Vince Young, that was other notable one, I thought. I mean, it's not super exciting. Steelers might pick him up as backup quarterback. He's in that style. Pierre Garçon is a free agent, too. Anybody hear anything about that?
He's, I've heard different things. Talking to Dean Frazier, he's a Bengal bias fan. He says that Pierre said that he would like to go play in the Stripes, but then there's also talk that he wants to come and play the Cleveland.
He's linked to Cleveland. He's linked it back to Indianapolis. He rejected Indianapolis' offer sheet, but he's linked to Cleveland as a great fit because he provides veteran experience and he's fast. Good.
So, quite frankly, with Pierre, who knows what's going to happen there? But you look at all the other positions. You got on the offensive line, Carl Nick Hicks from the Saints, who's a big-time offensive lineman. Jared Gaither with San Diego, he's a good offensive lineman.
Ben Grubbs.
They need him. they need to get him back in there after Dielman decided to retire. Defensive front, like Vince said, we have Mario Williams, Robert Mathis, Calais Campbell, Cliff Averill from Detroit, John Abraham from the Falcons.
Yeah.
Man,
He's not going
my
anywhere.
teams mixed up here tonight. Anthony Spencer, Curtis Laughlin, Dan Connor, Stephen Tulloch, linebackers. Then you look at the defensive backs, you got a number of good ones there. Carlos Rogers for the 49ers, Deshaun Goldson, like we said, who's getting franchise, Cortland Finnegan, Rasheed Mathis. And just for the fun of it, I even threw in some special teams players. Daniel Sepulveda for the Steelers is the free agent this year.
He is a good punter.
Dawson.
He is. I do like him.
Dawson's,
Phil Dawson and Mike Newson, a couple of the key kickers that are out there on the market. So really, a lot of good players possibly going places.
Yeah, and I mean, the one thing that's interesting to me is the Browns did not want to franchise Peyton Hillis. Now, granted, last season he wasn't a big-time player for them, but that was because of injuries. And then 2 seasons ago, he had such a good year, he was on the cover of Madden. One might say the Madden curse, if you believe in that kind of thing.
Yeah, but the Madden cover was a people's choice. It wasn't based off who was the best
If anything,
running back.
the Browns are a struggling franchise right now. They need to keep that fan base strong, and Peyton Hillis is one of the guys that's really good for their offense, and they're still kind of rebuilding.
Apparently, he's not a good locker room guy. They've said he's had issues in the locker room, and there is a report coming out today, confirmed by team sources, that he thought about retiring after the season and joining the CIA. He's a lot of people comparing him to a Ricky Williams type. His head isn't in it, his heart isn't totally in it. So I don't think you sign him to a long. If you sign him to a short contract, maybe 2 years, something like that.
You got to keep.
But one contract is good enough because if they don't sign him, who do they have? Chris Obanaya. The practice squad.
Don't be dissing Chris Obanaya.
You got Brandon Jackson. Everyone keeps forgetting about Brandon Jackson. Brandon Jackson's coming back. He's a good third down guy. And then if you got Obanaya coming in.
Do I need to reiterate the bell a second time for the first time in Raiders' own history?
Yes.
Shush, we're moving on. Baseball now. Steve's favorite sport. Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez respond to Bobby Valentine's comments as saying, well, basically, he's just ripping into the Yankees when he hasn't even done anything in Boston yet. Had a pretty good career with the Mets, but who knows what's going on.
It's Bobby V stirring things up. When does Bobby V not stir things up? He's been talking ever since he got to Boston. He was talking before that, even when he wasn't a political pundit. When he was linked to Cleveland, there was issues going on with what he said. So, I mean, it's Bobby V. I really, Jeter and A-Rod, get over it. Who cares? It's Bobby V. It's just more fuel to the fire in a rivalry. It should be fun to watch and see what he says after the Yankees beat them a few times and they beat them a few times, especially if it comes to playoffs.
I mean, the one thing for me that was really interesting was he called out Derek Jeter on the flip, which is the infamous play in the 2001 ALDS where Giambi was coming in home and Jeter got the throw from right field and just backhanded it to Jorge Posada, got him out. The interesting thing about that play was if Giambi would have slid in the first place, he would have been safe. But he went in standing up. So really, he can't call Derek Jeter out on that because Giambi would have been safe one way or another. But then the other thing is, if Bobby Valentine comes out and says, you know what? The Yankees are all right guys. I'm pretty sure he's not going to be well received in Boston. So he's got to start that fire. He's got to put the fire underneath the players who have just come off this whole beer ban, whatever, chicken gate, if you want to call it, from eating fried chicken in the dugout. And, I mean,
Delicious.
he has to light a fire underneath the players and the fans, for that matter, who kind of gave up on the team as well late last season.
I mean, I think Bobby V's probably established his reputation enough, but I feel like there's also a danger of going overboard and just coming off as ridiculous sounding, kind of like Dan Gilbert with the Cavaliers. I mean, I kind of thought, the flip wasn't a big deal, winning a World Series and whatever. It just seemed like he's sort of at that threshold where it's, you want to incite some emotion in your team, but at the same time, you're just sort of trolling, I guess. It's a bit much.
That might be a little bit of what he does, regardless. Him and Buck Showalter are both very similar in calling people out on the opposite teams. So I think it's kind of an old school style of I'm the manager, you're a player, get in line.
Two future Hall of Famers too.
Yeah, I'm going to call you out whether or not you think it's right or not. So I think while I agree with you, it's a little bit of trolling. I think it's just his style.
Who knows? He did do a good thing in banning alcohol in the clubhouse. That's something that just doesn't need to be going on because they're there to play baseball. Dave Ortiz has even said that. So we'll have to see what Bobby V does in his first season. UCLA has been having a lot of trouble with their basketball program in recent years, is saying that Coach Holland has basically let top recruits get away with things and that he's just lost all control of the basketball team out there at UCLA.
I don't know what's going on with this. I didn't even look up this story. I don't know why everybody's looking at me right
Oh,
now.
I was waiting for one of you two to go. I was going to let you guys go and then have my two piece. Go ahead.
I can go with this one. I think it's kind of interesting because I was telling Billy earlier before the show, I revered Ben Howland as a coach. You know, the past couple years when he took UCLA to the title game against Florida in 2007, he had Darren Collison, Russell Westbrook, those guys. You know, they were a fantastic team, and I thought Ben Howland was a good coach. You know, he was one of the better post-Wooden coaches. But now with this whole, I guess, kind of half scandal coming out with the fact that his team is getting away from him, one of the players even said this does not fit with the pyramid of greatness, which is something John Wooden coined to, like, it's something that helped better his teams and made him a better coach. It was a rule that he followed, and it just kind of saddens me because I always thought Ben Howland was a very good coach. He seemed like a player's coach and yet also that stern kind of disciplinarian, but if the team's getting away from him, I mean, I think that it's one of the more difficult things as an AD and as a staff for UCLA to kind of deal with.
There's a few things here running. One, first of all, Howland is the type of guy, they've said in the past that he's a guy who expects the team leaders and the stars to fall in line and do those things, to run the team. That's how his style plays with the player-manager type. He may not be that type of person who is a strict disciplinarian. The other thing is, this story is not as big if it's at any other basketball program.
Not at all.
Maybe Duke in North Carolina. It may be a little bit bigger. It may be big, but it's not anything like UCLA. If this is any other basketball team except for Duke and North Carolina, this doesn't shock anybody. This is just like, oh, it's the same thing that goes on in college basketball plays everywhere because it's UCLA, because of who was the coach there, because of the what they expect and what they expect out of their people and everything. That's why it's such a big controversy, such a big deal. And people are saying Howland's going to be fired. He won't be fired. There's too much going on right now at UCLA with hiring a new football coach, getting the pavilion all set up again. So this will blow over in a few weeks. He'll get himself under control. He's a good basketball coach. He brought them back to close to what they were.
But, you gotta wonder if the fact that he was allowing all this stuff to get the players to get away with, fighting at practice, injuring other players, underage drinking, doing drugs at all campus parties. You gotta wonder if the fact that he was letting that go unpunished, if he was able to draw the better talent there. But moving on, it is time for our cheers of the week. USA picked up its first win versus Italy yesterday in a friendly match. Previously, they were 0-7-3 and 10 matches against them, and that's just a great win for the United States international team.
Go Merca.
Yeah, you're talking about this, like you said, 0-7-3 all time. This is over a span of like 40 years. So we have never beaten them in any type of competition. So it's extremely impressive. And the best part about this is it wasn't just one of those U.S. games where there's the Americans got lucky because they kicked the ball forward, they ran forward and got a good shot off.
Or like the England goalkeeper where he let it go through his legs.
Yeah, letting it go through his legs. Lucky shots. This was a build. Like, they got the ball back and they built up the passes up to 10 passes in a row, which is something we saw a little bit under the previous coach Bob Bradley, getting that ball up there and trying to move that ball around from back forward. But now with Jurgen Klinsmann, he wants his defenders to move up, to be running and attacking the ball, and that's what we saw. The defenders and the midfielders are coming up. We got a nice string of passes. Josie Altidore right inside the box stopped the ball down, defended his man off of him, did not let the guy get around him, put off a nice pass, and Dempsey is having a career year, going nuts. He's the top American goal scorer in English Premier League history.
Fulham.
Yeah, left corner goal, and then we went back a little bit to what we used to do, where our defense was great. We're just going to sit down in a shell, and we'll counterattack if we need to, but our goal is out the door, hold up the ball, kick it forward, and we're going to clear you out. And we did it, and they did a great job. And I think there's some steps forward in that progress, like the passes and everything. Not exactly where we want to be, but it's moving in that right direction.
Overall in the series, we've been outscored 32-4 goals, just to give you a little bit. I mean, we said it was lopsided, but I mean, 32-4 is pretty, it's pretty substantial. Over 10 games, you only score 4 goals. But yeah. Vince, very detailed analysis of that. I appreciate that.
I was running around telling everybody yesterday.
You are the soccer guy over here.
Yeah.
I think it's good, though. I mean, if you look after the last World Cup, it was really exciting. It was better than we expected, but then kind of a big letdown against Ghana. I think overall, though, the U.S. is making big strides. I think with this new coach, they really have a shot to go a lot farther. And I think that we just have the stars right now. I think that this World Cup is really where we need to make an impact. Or I don't know, what was it, 2013 World Cup? Or no, 2014.
2014. Brazil.
Yeah, the next one coming up, though. I think they need to make a challenge because I think Landon Donovan is going to be right. Maybe might be a little bit past the speak, and Clint Dempsey, and I think that all our studs need to make, it's going to be their year because then I think we'll have another lull after that.
Yeah, this will be the last. This will probably be the last year we see We may see Dempsey one more time, but this will probably be the last year we see Donovan. We see our goalkeeper Tim Howard. We see a lot of our defense will probably be gone.
But I think, overall, I think this is a good move for the U.S. Soccer team. I think it really shows that we're definitely moving up in the world of world soccer.
Yeah.
Negativity of being on the end. These guys took every single legitimate point that I had.
Sorry.
And no, it's okay. I mean, Vince, you were very excited between your rant around the hallway. You've told me 3 times in the past 2 days, so yeah.
I think I'll tell you tomorrow, too, when I see you.
You just might. It's a little bit old, but that's fine. But, they're a solid group of veteran players with a couple of young guys they're bringing up. 2014 looks very, very good for them, even with all the international powers and being in Brazil with one of the greatest international teams of all time.
Yeah.
That's going to be the hard thing, going down to Brazil. Brazil, one of the greatest historical teams in World Cup history. Moving on, it's time for our Jeers of the Week. When will people ever learn? Collegiate athletes, you have DJ Green, who is a player at North Carolina State, got suspended for his sophomore season for testing for a banned substance. Ray Small, former Ohio State wide receiver, got busted with drugs. And Dre Kirkpatrick, this was a few weeks ago, started defensive back from Alabama, projected to go in the first round of the draft, gets caught with illegal drugs. Everybody is just being completely stupid when it comes to something like this.
Billy, it's absolutely ridiculous. The simple fact that they completely deny it. And, okay, DJ Green, in his article, in his interview with ESPN or whoever he was interviewing, said that it was a vitamin and he didn't know that substance was in it. Well, stop taking that vitamin. It's not that hard. If you don't want to do the research on whatever you're putting into your body that could potentially get you in this kind of trouble, don't take it. With Ray Small, he's always been around drugs. Whenever he was with Ohio State, great potential as a freshman, as a wide receiver and kick returner and punt returner. He was really good. Small guy, fast guy, but then just something small and stupid like this completely derailing his career. And I just think it's very, very dumb that these guys go back to do it, and then they'll be like, oh, well, I had no idea. I was just taking this one-a-day vitamin that happened to have PEDs in it. But that's not the case at all. It baffles me. The thing
that kind of came across or stood out in my mind when I was reading about this story with the linebacker DJ Green is that he said that he got the stuff from a friend. That is never, ever a good sign when you're taking some sort of a drug.
Unless your friend is a doctor.
Right. Well, even if it is a doctor, half the time it's like, it has to be a very qualified doctor because half the time they're like, oh, I got it from so-and-so, and he's actually a Canadian, shady guy who gave me these drugs. But that's never a good precedent to set.
Does his name begin with a G?
Right. It's never good to begin and say, well, my buddy gave it to me. Like, don't do that. Go buy your own, do some research, and like Ryan said, actually, when your collegiate career is on the line and it's very important, you need to be diligent about it and not just be like, oh, I'll just take it. Sure, I'll trust you. It's just not a good idea. And then I was actually a little excited that Ray Small got arrested because he's a jerk and he kind of messed up Ohio State because he came out and he was like, oh yeah, Tressel did all. It's like he's a jerk. So I was pretty excited about that actually.
This is just it's just terrible because you take a look at these guys and a lot of it I think is perpetuated by us, how we have these signing days and we have all these big things and make people think, oh hey, we're above the law, and then this is where you get in trouble.
Yeah, like we're catering to you, but that's not the case at all.
Yeah, just learn a lesson from these guys. Don't do anything stupid.
Drugs are bad.
Quote of the episode: don't do anything stupid.
What do you expect? I'm still hurting from last night.
Something my grandpa was saying.
Doling out advice on Raiders Zone Weekly.
It's time for our second 5 undivided topic of the night. It's getting close to tournament time. NCAA tournament coming up in just a few weeks. Selection Sunday, just a couple weekends away. Some conference tournaments have actually already started. Winthrop and VMI, I believe, are playing in the semifinals of their conference. But you take a look at it, we're going to take a look at the bubble teams here. As the last 4 team ends right now, according to Joe Lunardi, are Miami, Florida, Xavier, Texas, and Northwestern. The first 4 out are South Florida, St. Joseph's, VCU, and Colorado State. Then the next 4 out, Oregon, Colorado, Dayton, and UCF. And you take a look at the numbers as far as their strength of schedule and RPI goes, Colorado State should be in. They got a strength of schedule of 3 in the nation. Their RPI is 21st, which is the best of anyone on this list. And they've had key wins over UNLV, New Mexico, and San Diego State. And they're sitting there as one of the first 4 out. It's just hard to believe.
Well, who else do they play? I mean, if you get that again, this may be a little bit of the coming in where they're saying they play these big teams, yeah, and they have these big things, but they're not playing consistently enough against good competition to do something. The other thing that's really interesting here, I think, is I'm going to deviate away a little bit from the bubble teams. I'm going to say, take a look at Butler. Butler has to win their conference to get in. This is the team that's been to the finals the last 2 years. They have to win their conference to get in. That's how they're not even on the bubble. So, but going back to the bubble teams, I just felt throwing that out there for people because they all know Butler. But you take a look at Northwestern. Looked like they pulled a game-tying shot off against Ohio State, and Ohio State, Jared Solinger being a man and getting those 2 points in at the end of the game, just out-muscling everybody. Northwestern has played some close games. I think if they make a run in the tournament, they can fight their way back in because they're playing against the Big Ten, they're in the Big Ten, which is considered one of the top basketball leagues in the nation. And if they can make a run and at least get up to that finals or at least close to the finals, I think that might be enough to push them into that, and stay in that bubble and make it into the tournament. It'd be the first time they'd ever done that.
I just sort of went through and highlighted on 3 teams that are kind of bubble that I think should be in. Number 1, UConn, currently 17, well, as of whatever I read, they were 17-11, 7-9 in the Big East, mostly just because they're in the Big East and they're a historic powerhouse. Plus, I noted on here, and Ryan got a kick out of this, I always try to pick teams in blue in college basketball because they tend to do well. That might be how I pick my March Madness this year. I might just pick teams in blue. So I think UConn definitely deserves to be in there. George Mason, 23-8. I think they're another one of those teams that has sort of the historic precedent. They should be in there. And Xavier, too. 18-10. Yeah, not a fantastic record, but, slightly better than UConn.
They went downhill after the Cincinnati brawl.
Yeah, I know,
really
but
did.
I'm still going to say they could,
That's possible. They're a good team.
Oh, one more thing. Oh, never mind, Ryan. Vince said something. I was going to comment on it,
Sorry.
but I waited too long and I lost my train of thought, Ryan.
Oh, okay. I also highlighted 3 teams mainly. One is, as Billy mentioned, South Florida. I think they're a very good team. Lenardi was thinking them as one of the first 4 out, but they're 19-11 with a win over Louisville, and they've swept Pitt on the year. The first time they've done that in over 2 decades.
And you look at their strength of schedule in RPI, they got 24 is the strength of schedule, RPI of 35, so.
I feel like Pitt's lost some luster, though, after losing in the second round twice after being a 1 seed.
True, but they're still Pitt. I mean, you're not going to want to go and say, oh, I want to play Pitt in the tournament. I mean, that's not the case.
I would. I mean, if you lost twice in a row, I would be like, yeah, bring on Pitt. They're number 1 seed. Give it to me.
Yeah. But another one is Billy's beloved Longhorns. I feel like they have a pretty good shot. They have wins over Iowa State, who everybody like, Iowa State, why? But they're actually a very good program this year. And Kansas State, who I think is a very strong team. Frank Martin is one of the best coaches in college basketball.
They've won 11 out of 12 against Oklahoma, too.
Yeah.
That's pretty nice.
And the last one is the West Virginia Mountaineers, kind of a team that's gotten a little bit less play this year, but they're 18-12 on the year. They have wins over Georgetown and once again Pitt. And Georgetown was ranked number 9 whenever they beat them, took down the top 10 team. Kevin Jones is one of the potential Big East Player of the Year. He averages double-double as a senior. Truck Bryant also very good. They get a lot of play on ESPN because they're a
what
national.
was his name?
Truck Bryant.
Truck Bryant?
That's his nickname. Truck Bryant.
He needs to play football. It's a great name.
He's a point guard, actually. But I think West Virginia's got a good shot. If they make a run in the Big East tournament, they could be like UConn last year, coming in with a decent record and then make a run, and they have a good shot in the tournament.
The only difference, they don't have Kemba Walker.
True, but I mean,
It's clearly not the only difference between the 2 teams, Vince.
They both wear blue.
One has yellow.
I mean, yeah.
Something else this year, the Big East, although they are a powerhouse conference in basketball, I just don't think that they're as good this year as they've been in recent years.
Syracuse is really the only one you could say, like, this would be a team that can make a run.
Syracuse, and even Marquette, they've had a great season this year. They're snuck up. They're in the top 10 right now in the nation.
Well,
so.
Cincinnati beat them last night, though, too. Probably knock them out of the top 10.
Yeah, but still, nonetheless. At this point,
nonetheless.
in the
Very
top
good
10. Marquette just
you know what we can all agree on? Notre Dame will probably not make it.
I hope not. Moving on, we're talking about golf, as this past weekend, the WGC Accenture Match Play World Championship happened. Tiger loses in the second round to Nick Watney, and then Hunter Mahan goes on to win the thing, beats Rory McIlroy in the finals, and jumps up to number 9 in the world from number 22. Mahan had a very impressive showing on Sunday.
Yeah, he beats McIlroy, who, had he won that event, he would have been number 1 in the world. And you would consider that it's like his career path is falling similar to Tiger Woods' if you think about how young he is and everything.
McIlroy would have jumped Luke Donald for number 1.
So that's great for him that I think that's his second win of the second time he's won match play, I believe. Or he's been in the rounds. He's been gone to the finals before. But going back to Tiger, he loses in the second round. It's not because of his drives. It's not because of things that we usually think. It's because of his putter. Something that he's always been able to do. He couldn't read the greens this year. He's having trouble with it. So you take a look at that. the last few years, he was in 2009. He was third in putting. He was third, and he dropped every year. He's 162nd right now putting in the world, and there was reports he was hitting the putting green today when he went back out. He had to get his mind right, trying to get it fixed up. We know he's got some controversy going on with Hank Haney, his former swing coach, after the book that came out, but still unexcusable. You don't go 162nd putting unless you got some sort of mental block. He's got to figure it out and get it fixed up so he can get back to winning games, because putting was always a strength of his.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Vince. I mean, you can't be an elite golfer if your putting's not on. I mean, obviously the cliche putt for dough, drive for show, whatever. I mean, but still,
drive for show and putt for dough.
Reverse order, whatever. It's still got the point across. But yeah, I mean, if he's 162nd in putting, he's never going to get back, and that's the reason I think that we've seen him just not be able to finish out these tournaments. I mean, we've seen a couple tournaments where, he'll make it to Friday or Saturday, and he'll be right up there in the leaderboard, and then he just kind of falls apart the last day. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he just can't make it on the greens anymore.
Yeah, I mean, one thing is, Tiger keeps preaching, it's the healthiest I've been in a while after, surgeries and whatever. An older, healthy Tiger is not going to be the same as younger Tiger, who is also healthy, coming out.
Scary, intimidating.
Yeah, I mean, and young Tiger might not have been healthy, but he was still a better golfer than older, healthy Tiger is now. And in my mind, that's kind of a comparison as, old, injured Kobe Bryant is still as good as young Kobe Bryant. And it's like, no, because young Kobe Bryant is now what Kevin Durant is playing like, and I would take Durant any day.
The interesting thing, too, is a lot of people are citing that Woods has not played as well as he used to since his father's death in 2006. He doesn't have that voice that can calm him down and get him in focused, and he's got to try and figure out a way to get back to that.
I just think Tiger's done. When he was 14-14 before he lost the PGA Championship in the final round, when he had a share of it going in. As soon as that happened, I was like, Tiger's done. His career is pretty much over, and we know since then.
I don't think so. I think he's one of those guys who's really competitive. I see him coming back and winning a few more.
I don't think he's going to win another major. He might win some tournaments, but I just can't see it happening.
Masters. He's going to win a Masters. One more Masters before he's done.
That's bold.
Calling it.
I don't know.
Hey. The Golden Bear did it. The Golden Bear did it.
That was Jack.
He's a Buckeye, and he's Jack Nicklaus.
He is.
Moving on back to baseball, there's still talks, and they actually are getting closer and closer to having a 10-team playoff. This, quite frankly, to me, is just a bad idea. The season's long enough. You got spring training that starts. They've already started. They've been at it for a couple weeks now. Season starts the first week of April. Go on until September. We don't need to have 10 teams in the playoffs.
This is by far one of the dumbest things I think Major League Baseball could possibly do. Because with a 10-team playoff, they would be going close to end of October, November with games. You would have snow on the ground, say if, God forbid, the Indians made it into the ALCS. There would be snow at Progressive Field for a game they would play. Plus a 10-team playoff, that's 1/3 of the teams in the league. You'd have teams with sub-500 records rolling into the playoffs with like an 8 seed or however they would do it, and potentially play in the playoffs for a World Series.
Now wait a second. These are 1-game playoffs. These are not like 2 or 3 things. What they're doing is the people who win the divisions get buys, and then the wild cards play a 1-game playoff. Like we saw these last 2 games, was a 1-game playoff, and what they said it drove the highest ratings they've had were when they had those 1-game playoffs, which is why he's thinking about doing this. That little thing called money.
But
don't play that clip. Do not play the money.
Clip,
don't play it.
I'm not playing it because I have something to say about this. But you think about it, though, that actually had meaning to that, though, because it came down to a tiebreaker. This is not a tiebreaker. It's like, oh, you know what? We just have to win the second wild card, and we're into the playoffs. It's not like we have to win. It's
the other argument you can make about this is they're following the same model that the NCAA is doing when they're adding those play-in teams that come in once and make that, and they have to play in to make the game.
And how significant are those play-in games? Though
VCU made it to the Final Four. They were a playing game. They were a playing
game. Out of how many of the play-in games though in the past?
There's 4, but I'm just saying there's an example. You said how many? I gave you an example.
You see, that's something else too. Those playing games, they're putting teams as a 12 seed or something like that, or a 13 seed. If you're playing in a playing game, you should not be have a seed. You should be a number 16 seed going up against the number 1 seed, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing too, though, and I'm actually going to make some insight to baseball, which is a weird precedent for me. But if you do a 10-team playoff, at least some of these teams that are in these sort of mid-lower markets that are never going to be elite teams, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, actually get a chance to get into the playoffs. Maybe Cleveland wasn't a good example, but still, I mean, Pittsburgh. It makes it more exciting for some people and some of these markets to actually get in rather than just being Detroit, Boston, the Yankees every single time.
And there's like, with the Cardinals making that great run and getting in as a wild card, you don't, with that momentum, can you see how them doing a one-game playoff with even more pressure? What would happen if another team was just as hot coming in and playing them? That would be really interesting to see what's going on. So I'm interested to see how they work it out. It may just be terrible. They just need to, if they reduce the season schedule, I don't think it'll be nearly as bad.
That's the thing. They got to
If they
do that,
it.
they'd have to reduce the 100.
They should just reduce it anyway.
That would be close to 180 games for the World Series champion. That's a bit much.
Whoa. What's that?
It is that time of the night for our unknown sport, as tonight we were talking about the greatest sport of all, the cheese roll in England.
Are you going to introduce every sport as the greatest sport of all when we do this?
This one really is the greatest sport of all.
It is a good sport, though. It's
It
fun.
takes place on Cooper Hill, just outside of Gloucestershire. That's not even
Gloucestershire.
Thank you, Ryan.
Worcestershire.
It's
Worcestershire.
some weird town in England where what they do is they roll a cheese wheel down a hill, and the wheel can reach speeds of up to 70 miles an hour, and the winner for winning it just gets to keep the wheel.
Yeah, they roll down the hill. They run down the hill and they roll after. A lot of people, ESPN always shows it on there. They show it on their top plays and they show it on their not top plays. And it's really ridiculous to see these guys run, and then all of a sudden you see them trip and just roll after it. And these guys just like flipping and bouncing down a hill. It's highly entertaining to watch. Be honest, I would give it a shot. I want to see if I could make it win the cheese wheel. I don't know if I would ever eat it because that's kind of disgusting after it rolled around on a hill. At least I hope there's some wrapping around it.
I was going to say, I think this sport brings up some serious questions. Number one, what happens to the cheese after it rolls down the hill? Is there like a big cheese festival at the bottom where everyone eats it?
No, the winner gets to keep
Winner
it.
keeps
the
it.
man that
Just keeps it?
Yeah,
But do you eat it?
Oh, I would
I don't
assume
know.
Isn't
you
it
would eat
gross from rolling around on the ground and
It's
stuff?
sideways up. So
Or do
I'm
you keep
assuming
it,
it's-
and if you are the winner, do you keep it and eat like a king for the next 6 months, or do you display it as a trophy?
I would do a little bit of both.
I mean, I think it's a big conundrum.
I think I would cut off the area that was like where it rolled, and then the rest of it I would eat and like feed my family.
Yeah, that's
Particularly if I was super poor.
Here's what was awesome about last year. Chris Anderson, who's 23 years old at the
Wait,
time of
time
last
out. I think everything is awesome about cheese rolling, Billy. Let's just make that clear.
Yeah.
Anyway, Chris Anderson, 23 years old, is last year's cheese rolling contest, which happens at the end of May, so coming up pretty quick. He won all 3 adult male races, so he got 3 wheels of cheese last year.
Wow.
That just goes to...
It's gonna be a large graduation party for him if he uses
Wait,
that.
it's a race. It's not a distance thing.
No, it's literally a race.
It's
like
a race
everyone
down the hill.
runs.
See, for
You
me,
face down-
I know if I were to do cheese rolling, I would be very good because I'm very top heavy. So if I were to just fall down, I would have a lot of momentum going down that hill,
speaking
going
of
after
which,
the cheese.
the bottom picture right there, as I'm showing these guys 2 pictures, is Chris Anderson doing a backward somersault while chasing the cheese down the hill.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
a lot of injury for some Gugasberg. Let me tell you.
This one dude I saw, he hit face first and just flipped and kept rolling down the hill. It looked like it hurt, but yeah, they run, they trip basically at the top of the hill and roll down to get as much speed as possible to get. And then I think it's like whoever grabs the cheese first or whatever wins.
Oh, those crazy Brits and their cheese.
Oh, they had like the mud soccer too, and
But here's something else right before we end the topic. 2009, the injury toll of 18 was described as low by St. John Ambulance, and 10 of the wounded were spectators. So I mean, just imagine you're just standing there watching this thing, and also you get hit in the head by a cheese wheel.
I wish.
I have a feeling it's people running into them, just rolling out of the way and smashing.
so
into
much
them.
sacrifice.
Well, I'm sure that it's the people running into them, but I'm just saying, just think about it. It's like you're standing there watching a cheese wheel roll down a hill, and you get hit in the head with it.
If I'm ever around England at that time, I am competing in this competition.
Moving on, this past weekend, as we talked about earlier, was All-Star Weekend. Kobe Bryant suffers a broken nose / concussion at the hands of D. Wade during the game, and he ended up playing last night, but he's wearing a mask. Does this just signify that the All-Star game is kind of pointless and just something that players don't want to play in?
It signifies that Dwayne Wade needs to step it up, man. I mean, he hits him, and what's he do? So he puts him to the line. What's he do? He's got a pass, easy way to take the lead. LeBron, perfect pass like they've done all year, and he flubs it. He just blew it 2 different ways. One, he smacked Kobe in the face and fractured him, which means Kobe's just going to take him out if they ever play in the finals. It's going to go off for him like 50 because Kobe holds grudges almost as badly as Jordan does. 2, Dwayne Wade couldn't catch the ball that would have put him into the lead. That just shows the Miami Heat stink.
Yeah, and I also like how much attention LeBron James has garnered during the All-Star game. What player gets criticized for their performance in an All-Star game? It was hilarious. They're like, should LeBron have passed at the end, or should he have taken the shot? Like, I don't know. I just thought that was
of course.
hilarious. Like, really? Like, you're criticizing LeBron's performance? I mean, it's whatever.
I don't like LeBron for what he did, but come on, guys. Seriously? It's getting a little ridiculous.
Well, here's all right. So, sorry, Ryan.
No, I mean, I was just gonna say, the fact that Billy did mention, it's so meaningless. Like, the game is simply for fun, and I mean, you have guys that are stopping in the middle of the game while the clock is running the third quarter to watch Blake Griffin do an alley-oop off the backboard. Yeah. I mean, the game is supposed to be very fun, but yet Dwayne Wade smacking Kobe in the face, giving him a concussion, that kind of physical play isn't needed in the All-Star game.
Though.
Oh, it's hilarious to me because, I mean,
nobody
it's so
likes
random.
Kobe, nobody likes Dwayne Wade, so...
I mean, it's just the Heat, though, so I'm always going to be like, you know what? Stop.
Yeah.
Steve, you have something you want to add real quick?
No. Actually, why do they play in this and not do the dunk contest is what I want to know.
Yeah, I agree.
What is the rationale? I mean, you're probably more likely to get hurt. It's more work.
I think you get paid more if you're in the All-Star game than you are in the dunk contest. You just win a trophy with the dunk contest.
Well, you can do both. I mean...
Yeah, but you actually get paid for the All-Star game.
Who knows? That is a very good question,
It's like the same thing with the Pro Bowl. You don't have to
Thank
really
you, Billy.
play,
Steve, why don't you research that and then let us know after spring break?
I'll do my best.
5 Undivided.
Time for our last 5 undivided topic of the night. Saw an article this afternoon about Zach Metterberger, who is going to be the quarterback at LSU this next year. He's finally getting his chance after sitting behind Jordan Jefferson and Jarrett Lee the last couple of seasons. And it got me thinking, who is quite possibly one of the top team coming into this next year's college football season, and who are some teams and players that we should be on the lookout for?
I think Alabama, LSU are going to be contenders yet again, just because they're obviously solid programs. They still got a lot of young guys coming up. Arkansas is probably going to be good. Georgia, South Carolina. If you haven't noticed a pattern, these are all SEC teams. I'm going to pull the Jesse Mead and say until somebody proves the SEC wrong, you got to pick an SEC team to be the top in NCAA football.
I'm going to take a look. I'm going to go on the West Coast. As much as I hate this, USC is going to be a team to watch out for because they can finally get into a postseason game. They can finally play in a bowl. They can do those things. And they only had 2 losses last year. If anyone can end with the way that team is playing right now, if there's any team that can end an SEC dominance, it could be USC. I'm interested to see what Urban Meyer does with Ohio State in his first year, getting his system installed. But yeah, Alabama, bringing back, and LSU. A lot of people are predicting LSU to be good this year, not last year. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. But those are the ones I'm looking out for. I'm looking for Ohio State to thrash Michigan in the final game as well.
Which is depressing because they have no postseason next year. Yeah, but I put down Urban Meyer as my favorite coach. It's still exciting to see how he's going to build up the Buckeyes.
That's what I'm interested in. It's totally different stuff from what Tressel did. How different is it going to be?
Well, I'm just gonna. I really can't wait till the fact that next year I will not be going last, because my 3 teams and players that I had going. The first one I kid you not, was USC with Heisman runner Matt Barkley. He is the Heisman frontrunner right now, and as much as I still hate USC for beating Ohio State, I think Matt Barkley is going to be the best quarterback in the nation this year, bar none. If he has a season like he did last year, he'll take him to a BCS bowl game with the easiest Pac-12 conference besides Oregon, and then. My next one, as a matter of fact, was South Carolina, as Steve mentioned, because I think they're the most underrated SEC team under Steve Spurrier, and Marcus Lattimore is a heck of a running back. He's a beast, quite frankly. And then my last one, shocker here again, was Ohio State. And for me, I know Ohio State can't make a bowl game this year. That's understandable. But I love Braxton Miller's play already, and I think that he's going to develop in the spring and throughout next season. And this is going to be a trial run. This is perfect for them, actually, because with a young quarterback like Braxton Miller and a first-year coach in there like Urban Meyer, they're going to have it'll be a practice year. If they potentially win the Big 12, it doesn't do any good for them, but it doesn't do any Big 10, sorry. But the 12 teams got in my head.
Yeah.
But
that'd be crazy if they won the Big 12, though.
You know what? That's the kind of year they're going to have in my mind, I think that Braxton Miller's a really good quarterback, and if they do well, they do well. It doesn't matter, and if they do bad, it's just whatever.
The best part about Braxton Miller, in that Wisconsin game when he led us back and on that crazy drive, they did on the sideline, you saw everybody else freaking out, and he's just walking calmly. You can see he was in that moment. He was perfectly fine with taking that moment. He didn't freak out like, oh, gee, I did something awesome. He was like, let's move on to the next thing, and that's what I like seeing from particularly how young he is going forward.
Well, that's what he did at Huber Heights Wayne down near Columbus whenever he was in high school. He played with a broken ankle, and a lot of people were like, well, why are you doing this? And they thought he was going to be crazy and very uncomposed, but he was very calm whenever he played with a broken ankle. He was very reserved. He's a good field general at the quarterback position, and he's also a heck of an athlete, too.
since you guys pretty much mentioned every team that I was going to mention, Steve touched on it a little bit. Georgia coming out of the SEC East. I think that's a team to be on the lookout for this next year. It's going to be a good battle between them and South Carolina for the SEC East. You got Aaron Murray there, Isaiah Crowell, who's a pretty decent running back. Their defense is going to be pretty good this year too. So they're really.
It's going to be a good battle to see who loses to Alabama or LSU.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's hard to discount Alabama and LSU. I mean, we could talk about how good South Carolina and Georgia are going to be all day, but it is hard to get past Alabama and LSU being
I'm not saying it's going to be easy for them to get past. I'm just saying that I think that that's going to be the battle, because if in the SEC title game, if one of those two teams are going up against LSU or Bama, it could very well be it, especially if it's LSU in the title game, because you'll have Connor Shaw at South Carolina, who's an experienced quarterback now, and Aaron Murray, who's an experienced quarterback, compared to Meckerberger, however you say his last name, I can't even remember how to say it now, who is just going to be in his first year of starting. So, a lot to look out for college football this upcoming season, even though we're only at the beginning of March. Moving on, back to the NBA, the Sacramento Kings, thank goodness, have got a deal done to where they're going to be staying in Sacramento. They have not moved since they moved there. Forget when exactly it was, from Kansas City when they were the Monarchs, but now they get to stay in Sacramento. Kevin Johnson, the mayor, pretty happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is great for the city of Sacramento because, they're kind of a struggling city right now, both economically and sports-wise. Granted, they're the capital of California, which is like one of the biggest state in America, but they're
Alaska.
Really the biggest state in America is
population-wise.
Population-wise, yes.
Sorry, Sarah Palin lovers over here back in Alaska like
man,
no other.
on.
My gosh. But, I think even though they're kind of a floundering team per se, Kevin Johnson played in the NBA for a while. He's wanting basketball to stay in Sacramento. I think it's good for him as a city and as a whole, really.
I think Texas is bigger, too, just saying. But I think the interesting thing...
Is it the Geography Bee or Raider Zone Weekly? I really don't know.
It's a little bit of both,
Okay,
man.
well, it's kind of just dogging on me right now.
Yes.
That's all it is.
It's dog on the freshman
Take
day.
my freshman loans. Thanks.
You got to go through it, man.
Just wait till next year, Ryan.
I'll be bossing everybody else around.
Exactly.
Except
I
will be.
But you got to take a look at this. Anaheim, literally, they were ready to move. Anaheim has an arena. Anaheim wants a team. They're really to financially back them. And the Maloof brothers are like, we need money because we're broke, because we like spending all of our money here. We'll move here. And they were able to stop them. And a lot of people didn't want to see a repeat of what happened with Seattle, how they got hijacked all the way down to Oklahoma City. So that's something that might have played into that as well. David Stern is very now, ever since that, has been very concerned about making sure a team stays in that region. And he doesn't like contraction, so he doesn't want that to happen either. So you're taking a look at that. And I think it's great for them because when they were great, they had a loyal fan base. They still have a loyal fan base. It's just that the problem is there's no money for the loyal fan base to come, and there's nobody for the loyal fan base to come watch because the team's still pretty terrible.
Oh, back in the early 2000s, Mike Bibby, Vladdy Divac, Chris Webber, Doug Christie, that was a great team.
Western Conference Finals against the Lakers when they were going on their three-peat.
Just grab the ball, Divac. Don't tip it out.
Well, you got to think, though. It's important. I think you want to keep as many teams as you can in California, it being the largest state in the U.S.
Yeah.
I think
How many teams are in California right now, Steve?
100.
There's
You didn't specify
1, 2,
professional.
3,
They have four
4?
Sepak Takraw leagues, Billy.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You didn't say what sport. No, I don't know.
I
I was
think
just trying to
there's
rip
4
on
right
Ryan.
now.
There are 4.
It's hockey time.
Last full-time segment of the night before we make our picks is Hockey Time drama down in Columbus. Steve Nash. Jeez, dang it, Vince. Now you got me doing it.
It's Rick Nash. I always call him Steve Nash.
Rick Nash requesting to be traded after he said that the front office and management should be exchanged out. A lot of crazy things going on there. I was talking to Jesse about, but nonetheless, now people not liking Rick Nash. But you got to think, he's given his heart to this team, and they have not done anything to build around him.
Yeah, they'll get the fans will get over. They understand that's the thing. Rick Nash has said he loves Columbus. He's willing to stay there. He requested the trade. He's getting old. He's losing his prime. He's only been to the playoffs once. Hasn't won a game, and that's not his fault. He's scored a ton of goals for this team. He's done everything he can for this team, and they have not. And their GM has refused to put people in place to help him out to do anything. He hasn't gotten a chance to do it. So the request for a trade is something I completely understand. And the fact that he said, I'm going to play my heart out for this team regardless, and we'll see what happens from there. And if they get people that end up there and he wants to stay, then he wants to stay. He gave a very specific list of people he wanted to go to. It wasn't like he was just like, trade me, and then was vetoing his no trade clause. He gave a very specific list of people, and he did say, I want to leave Columbus so that they're okay, that I just didn't destroy their cap or destroy anything that what they had. If he wanted to be traded, he wanted to make sure Columbus got some sort of compensation to help them for building to the future. So I've got no problem with him requesting a trade, particularly since he's given everything for this club, and it doesn't seem like this club has given anything to him.
No, it's absolutely understandable. It's kind of the stark opposite of the LeBron situation, I think. I think if you could go on the trade, trade spectrum or like leaving a team spectrum, LeBron would be the most evil, and then I think Rick Nash would be the most amiable. I mean, I think that's a way to do it. If a team is not supporting you, if they're not putting players in to develop this program, they kind of remind me of Cleveland in a lot of senses, as far as like with the Browns. Like, it's just not a well-run, effective organization. And I mean, it might not be their fault. It might not be that they're trying to do this on purpose so that Rick Nash fails. It might just be that it's not a good hockey program. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. It's tough for him, and you can understand that if he wants to further his career or actually wants to win, then he's going to have to leave. But I do appreciate how much he's talked about how he's trying to make the process as easy as he can if he does leave.
Yeah, Rick Nash to me is the Blue Jackets. He is their team, but the Blue Jackets have to move on without him because he has been the Blue Jackets for so long. It's ridiculous, but he is a veteran player. He's a good player, and he needs to go to a team that will win a championship. I want to see him win a Stanley Cup before he retires because he is that kind of player.
He won goal with Canada. He scored the game winner for them with to get into the finals. So I mean, you talk about a guy. It's not just like, oh, he's good on a bad team. No, he's good. He's really good.
Yeah, without him, Columbus would be nothing.
Columbus probably would have been gone by now.
Pretty much. It is time to make our picks.
He's Peyton Manning.
It is time to make our picks now, finally. As this weekend, ACC regular season title on the line. Ryan, you were wrong saying Florida State was going to win it a few weeks ago.
Yeah, well, I mean, they took a tumble, but
Duke crushed them.
They were at the top, though. It wasn't a crush. They lost by 8. But then they lost to Miami, which was just pitiful.
Nonetheless, though, this weekend, number 6, North Carolina, looking to get revenge and try and beat Duke on the road, as Duke and Austin Rivers able to knock them off at Chapel Hill. Do they take care of number 3 Duke at Cameron Indoor Stadium?
Won't happen, Duke. We're going to win.
I agree. I think Duke's going to win, too. It's hard. It's tough to beat them at home.
I mean, I love Carolina basketball, but I have Duke at home on this one. I mean, the Cameron Crazies are too much.
Yeah, I got Duke as well. And by the way, after our first week of actually recording the picks, the 3 of you are 3-2, tied at top.
He's 4-0. Watch.
Did you not just hear me? I just said tied at top.
I was just waiting for you to be like, except I lied, and then all of a sudden I'm in the lead because I am all of a sudden undefeated.
Where are you at?
I'm 2-3.
Well, I mean, hey,
craziness.
I was going to ask you if you kept track of that, but
yep,
okay.
I did.
Good.
I got
there we go.
I got it. It's under control. Next pick out of the Big East, number 18 Louisville, trying to knock off number 2 Syracuse and ruin their chances at a number 1 seed, which probably won't happen.
No, not happening. Syracuse, they pulled out some close games. Fab Melo came back. Everything's good. They're going to win.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like weird stuff happens in the Big East Championship or in the Big East tournament. I don't know why.
This ain't even the tournament yet.
Well, weird stuff still happens in the Big East tournament, Billy. All right, that has nothing to do with this, but that was just a point. That was just a point I wanted to make. All right, just keep that in mind for when we start talking about the Big East tournament. But for this game, unrelated to the Big East tournament, I think Syracuse is going to win.
Yeah, I mean, Boeheim at the Carrier Dome is always a good pick. I have Syracuse at home.
And I'll make it another clean sweep with Syracuse. Louisville, pretty good team, but not good enough to take out Syracuse. Number 12, Georgetown, taking on, as before, number 7, Marquette, on the road. With Marquette having their pretty good season, can they keep it going?
I don't know. This is a toss-up because Georgetown is, when you think basketball, college basketball, you think it's Georgetown as one of those premier teams. That being said, I think I'm going to continue my home streak. I think I'm going to go with Marquette. Georgetown, in the last few years, has failed to live up to expectations. I'm going to stick with Marquette.
Well, crazy things happen in the NBA Finals, but unrelated to that, I think I'm going to go with Marquette. I think I agree. They haven't quite lived up. I want to pick Georgetown just because of it sounds like you should pick Georgetown in this, but I'm going to go with Marquette.
Well, I think I'm going to pick Georgetown, but not for the nostalgic reasons. They held Notre Dame, a top 25 ranked team, to 41 points in their last game. And I mean, I think Georgetown's D is unbelievable. I think on the road they have this one.
Yeah, they have a tendency to blow.
And that is exactly why I'm picking Georgetown as well. Holding Notre Dame's good offense to 41 points. They can get the job done offensively in Georgetown, but defensively, That is just a scary team.
Bold move for the guy in last place in the picks right now.
Got that right. I got to make some ground up. Next pick, number 1, Kentucky. At number 13, Florida.
Kentucky. They're just too talented right now.
You know, crazy things happen in the Olympics. I'm going to say that Kentucky is definitely, I think they're a clear number 1. I think they're going to knock off Florida and take it.
Yeah, Florida's lost 4 of their last 7, and Kentucky is the number 1 overall seed in the tournament. They're going to be
Actually,
too.
Syracuse are projecting to be the number 1 overall seed right now.
I'd still disagree with that right now. I mean, I think Kentucky.
I think Syracuse would crush Kentucky. To be honest, but.
Say all you want about Syracuse and Kentucky, but I'm picking Florida.
Ugh.
Oh, boy.
Even though they have lost 4 of the, what'd you say it was 4 of the last
4 of their
7?
last 7.
You know what? It's those teams that are on a losing streak that you got to watch out for.
Crazy things happen in the final regular season game.
Quote, they're due, says Billy.
Exactly. They're due for a win. I think they can knock off Kentucky, especially since it's down.
What are you going for, like, the number 1 pick in the draft next year, just, like, losing your picks on purpose, Billy? Jeez.
Hey.
We don't have a draft.
Hey. Yeah, like it matters anyway. I'm gone in May.
He's going to go undefeated for next week.
He's one of those guys he's on his way out, so he's just picking crazy picks, just so he leaves a mess behind for the next regime to clean up.
Yep, pretty much. Last pick, well, not necessarily last pick. Number 11, Ohio State, and number 5, Michigan State, looking to get revenge after Michigan State knocked off Ohio State down in Columbus.
It's on the road. Michigan State.
You know, I've seen some crazy things happen in the World Sepak Takraw Championships. But in this game, I think Ohio State keeps letting me down. I feel like I keep picking them to win games, and they just keep losing games they shouldn't lose. And they're at Michigan State. They should lose this one. So I think they're going to win. So Ohio State.
I still can't go against the Buckeyes. I have to go with Ohio State. You know, the last game, Adrian Payne went off for Michigan State. And even though they are on the road, I feel like they need this one because they're kind of faltering a little bit right now going down the road. So I feel like they need this win.
They need it. They don't get it, though. Like I said, going into the Michigan game, Buford has been terrible on the road.
I think we barely beat Northwestern.
I mean, Sullinger's been pretty bad, too. They're just not playing well.
Sullinger did well in the last game.
Moving on, time for our odds maker of the night. Odds that we have 2 Big 12 schools as number 1 seeds in the tourney, both Missouri and Baylor, making pretty good cases.
I'm going to go with the 75%. I just can't see 2 Big 12 teams in there. If anything, I could see them putting maybe another Big East team in there or somebody else maybe sneaking in a Big 10 team. I just can't see 2 Big 12 teams. So I'm going to go 75% because it's still probable. I just can't see it.
You know, some weird things happen in the 3rd round of the NAIA women's volleyball tournament. So I think that I'm going to say 94% chance.
I'm going to go with a 20% chance because, I mean, I think Kansas is going to be up there, but I think whoever wins the Duke-North Carolina game will be the 4th seed to go along with Kentucky and Syracuse.
I'm going to go about 30% chance. I don't think that they get both of them get a number 1 seed. Whoever makes it further in the Big 12 tournament is going to be the one that gets the 1 seed. But who knows? There's crazy things that happen, like Steve's been saying over and over again. Bonus pick. After the streak has ended, how many games will Detroit lose at home now in the NHL?
I'm going to go with how many more games are left?
10
games
they
left?
Have 10 home games left.
10 home games? I'm going to go 3. I think that's just like an average number now. They lose 3 and then they get hot back in the playoffs again because it's impossible to win in the playoffs at Detroit.
You know, you see some crazy things happen in the Metrics World's Strongest Man competition.
I'm sure you watched that. Why do I feel you watched that show?
I do. It's great.
Not
Have you ever seen it?
No.
It's better than cheese rolling. We should do Metrics World's Strongest Man competition, Billy.
Maybe.
But anyway, I don't know, 50%.
I'm going to go with 2. I mean, they play kind of shoddy teams towards the end. I mean, they play like Florida twice at home. I mean,
I like the word shoddy.
Yeah, I mean, going old school.
I'm going to go with they lose 3 home games the rest of the season, but just another thing. We'll have to wait and see how things play out. But that will do it for us here tonight. We thank you for joining us here on Raiders Zone Weekly. Be sure to tune in tomorrow night as Ryan and I will be broadcasting the women's first-round national tournament game here from the MAC. Tip-off scheduled for 7 o'clock. Probably won't start till about 7:30
Who's
or so.
playing?
We will be playing LaRoche College.
There's another game previous.
There is.
That.
But that is not.
Playing.
But unfortunately, that is not on WRMU. But
late cheer of the week right there. Women with a number 1 seed.
Yeah.
Whoop, whoop.
Yep. As they are hosting this weekend, so 2 games. Well, 3 games here technically, but nonetheless, we hope that you join us tomorrow night. But until then, keep listening to the radio voice of Mount Union, WRMU 91.1.